Hi, welcome to Illustrated Beards, brought to you by Fantasy Shop, best in comics and games since 1981. I'm Nate.
I'm Jason.
I'm Rogerwayne.
Oh,
Right?
the third beard has chimed in. This is Rogerwayne. He's going to help us out tonight.
He's our good friend. Today, we're going to be reviewing Infinity #1. It's a big deal. East of West #5. And Breath of Bones, A Tale of the Golem, #3.
Did you forget that it was #3 since 10
it's
seconds ago?
It's a 3-issue miniseries, and it's the last one, but I forgot.
Infinity, part 1 of 6, from Marvel Comics, the team of Jonathan Hickman and Jim Cheung. Amazing combination.
I agree.
Jim Cheung's pencils are pretty solid. The first thing I will say about this is, if you've read Marvel crossovers in the past, they always hit you right away with like Michael Bay style action. It's Michael Bay explosion. And right away trying to hook you. They always end up way too long, and then it kind of will peter off towards the center, and then the endings are always very lackluster in Marvel crossovers. And I'm not trying to be mean, it's just how it is. Like, they will end their crossovers setting up the next big thing to come, which is a crappy way to end a crossover. I mean, I want a solid ending, and then if there's some aftermath stuff, that's fine, but end the crossover well. And I can't say what the future will hold for Infinity, but after reading issue 1, I'm pretty convinced that this will be a crossover unlike the last few that we've seen. Just because you look at this issue, there's not much action in it, and what little you do see of the Avengers, they're very confused about what's going on. There's a group of people called the Builders, which they've been setting us up with in New Avengers. Even if you've read New Avengers, it's still kind of vague as to what their true goals are and where their loyalties lie. That is the story that has built up to this right here. And again, like I said, it's not what you would expect out of an issue 1 of a crossover. It's very toned down. Jonathan Hickman has a unique writing style, almost like chapter-based in a way.
Super cinematic. It's like jump cuts everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I could easily see this on a screen.
Right. And if you've been reading, like, we were compared it to Manhattan Projects. He does that with Manhattan Projects. He breaks it down chapter-based almost, where within a small 30-issue or 30-page issue, there is breaks where we'll switch perspectives and areas entirely and move to what you would, the next chapter. It sets up Thanos and his generals pretty well. The big question mark, I think, for, coming out of this issue is the Inhumans. Black Bolt, who is a member of Illuminati, has some kind of information that Thanos seeks. Now, there are several other members of the Illuminati that I'm sure Thanos is aware of at this point, but for some reason his assassin seeks out Black Bolt. That became kind of a big question mark at the end of the issue.
It touched on what I thought the question was, like the secret that this dude would hold, and then it became clear that that was a non-issue to Thanos.
Right.
Which is really weird.
If you know Illuminati, you know that they possess the Infinity Gems. Yeah. And that right now, if you've been reading New Avengers, they are lost. They do not know where the Infinity Gems are. Some of them they know are shattered and scattered to the wind, but there are some that are missing. So yeah, I mean, you think that's the issue, but clearly it's not the issue.
Yeah.
There's something else that Black Bolt possesses within his mind that Thanos is after. And it almost kind of implies that he figured it out.
Yeah, no, but
like they didn't show us as an audience what it was.
There's a lot of questions left.
Yeah.
Meh. Meh. To me, it looks just like an average Marvel crossover. Without the big explosions. We did see an explosion. We saw something dramatic happen in the universe.
Sure.
But I have a feeling that by the end of issue 4, we're going to be like, it's just like everything else. Maybe I'm spoiled from my big first crossover from Flashpoint, which was universe altering and actually stuck.
Yeah.
But nothing Marvel has done stuck.
The one thing that I look at that's different about this one is they're only doing it for 6 issues. The problem, I think, with their crossovers is they tend to spread them out a little too much.
But you still have it spread out with Avengers and the other comics. I mean, if you look right
there are
there...
only 2 comics that are major tie-ins to it, and it's Avengers and New Avengers. I mean, there are less important tie-ins that they're telling us that are happening, but if you look at the main story, it's literally Avengers on one side, New Avengers on the other. There are these mini tie-ins over here, but they're clearly not a part of this main story.
It's not nearly as bad as Civil War was.
No.
But at the end of Civil War, we were still left with, well, that happened.
Sure.
And I feel Infinity is trying to be different, but I'm hooked for the next 3 or 4 issues. I'll see what happens, and then obviously I'll buy all 6 because I've read 4 of them.
Yeah. Right. And to be honest, that's how I feel about comics in general. It's almost a rule for me. I'll read a first issue. If that first issue does not convince me that I should have read the first issue, then I won't read the second issue. But with crossovers, it definitely is that thing where like you really don't know until halfway through.
Right.
I'll say that this was a really solid issue and I'm impressed with it. Somebody raised an interesting point about Hickman's writing earlier. He's writing these good stories that are really like grand scale, but there's like a lack of human element in them.
He tends to put too much on the galactic side of things and not enough on Earth and the Avengers, and that's the core of the story. One thing that makes this crossover different and one thing that makes it worth my time, and I think worth everybody's time, is there's only one writer. That's a problem with Marvel crossovers. They'll have 6 people collaborating on a single event, and that's a problem. There is one, Jonathan Hickman is the writer. That's it. Guys who also work for Marvel who are collaborating on this. There's one guy writing it and one artist drawing it. And I think that might help unify it a little more than what we've seen out of some other crossovers. Yeah. So that I think is something that will help it in the future. This book introduces you to all the key players and sets up where they will be come the next issue. What the antagonists are. I mean, it sets up the builders. It sets up Thanos and his generals. It sets up, you know, the protagonists, which are clearly the Avengers and the Inhumans.
And Space Knights.
They're awesome.
They were cool.
The evolution of them in their pseudo Iron Man looking thing that they got going on, that's great. It's amazing. And Thanos is always amazing. I mean, whenever they bring Thanos in, it's always a really cool story. Yeah. Never read a Thanos story that disappointed me.
Marvel Universe versus Space Hitler. I have a message from Marvel. This is my first crossover that I care about.
I feel like there was a but don't screw it up.
Yeah, they should know.
Okay. But Infinity Part 1 of 6, we as a retailer are putting a lot of stock in this. We have a lot of copies, so check it out. I really am looking forward to see where it goes.
Breath of Bones, A Tale of the Golem, Issue 3. This is a 3-issue miniseries about a village, presumably in Russia. It doesn't ever really say where, but it's clearly the Eastern Front, early World War II. It's clear immediately, just because of the name, that it's going to have something to do with a golem protecting the town. The golem is from Jewish folklore, and it is a construct, essentially, made out of earth that through, like in the folklore, through the use of the Hebrew language and faith is brought to life. And it's usually like a Frankenstein story where somebody played God and it was a stupid beast that ended up stepping on its master.
I remember you had said that, and that was my immediate reaction, is nothing bad happened. And it was fantastic the way it was all presented. But yeah, there was no repercussion.
Because the moral of this story is not, don't play God. The moral of this story is that, like, innocence and dignity win out over evil.
Sure.
Well, I don't want to give too much away, but there is that line about evil fighting evil. From issue 2,
Yes.
when the grandfather's
From
making
issue 2.
it.
What does he say?
Evil, sometimes you have to make evil to fight evil.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
And so I was waiting for something bad to happen with the golem, and it didn't.
It implied that it was fueled off the emotions of its creator.
Well, and they're hating Nazis.
Yeah, which was mourning and righteous indignation, which, righteous as it may be, indignation is indignation.
It looked like he had feelings, especially with the conclusion of issue 3.
Yeah, the golem, I mean, it's clear that it's not just a mindless beast, that it does care for these people that it's protecting.
But I think that's strictly because, I mean, it's a soulless conduit.
I have a different take.
That's fair.
I have a different take on, on the golem. What if the golem is the grandfather?
Whoa.
Right? Like
that actually makes a lot of sense.
Holy.
It does change your perspective on the ending entirely.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because I mean, clearly
that
it
fits
feels
too artistically too. Like if you look at the panels and everything, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
At the end, him sitting there in the mud going.
Yeah, clearly it feels not only for the town, but for the grandson especially. I mean, that became a very relevant thing in issue 3. I mean, you see it come right up to him, and you know, like it cares for him in a way that it doesn't care for everything else.
Wow, that's crazy.
It makes a lot of sense too, because in order to give life to this thing, someone had to die. Based on that little moment at the end, where we see him as an older guy and he's forming this thing in the dirt, that maybe he thinks he's gonna die, and he's gonna give birth to something in his own death.
Yeah.
That it takes death.
Seriously, this honestly,
it takes death to give life.
This is what I gotta say about this book: is each issue gave me chills, and talking about it now gives me chills in like the best way. Not because it's like, it's not chilling. It is just a phenomenal story. This is the best miniseries I've read all year, maybe with the exception of Bram and Ben.
The pacing is something I really enjoyed. It's not something that makes you angry that you don't get to the action right away. Because when you finally do get to that, it holds so much more meaning in the end.
And the action is just so fast. You don't see a German for the first 2 issues, and then they show up and you're like, oh, everything's going to go down, and it goes down within 3 pages.
Yeah.
3 pages is all the action, and then you're stuck with this this creature and this boy and this connection that they have that happened in literally 15 minutes. That you can just tell that the book is not about the action.
No, it's about the relationship.
And it's weird that the relationship formed so quickly, which is why I'm leaning more towards the whole grandfather thing.
Yeah,
Steve
that is
Niles,
something that I didn't see. That's amazing, brother.
I mean,
that's really well done. Because I think you're right.
But Breath of Bones 3-issue miniseries, I'm sure they'll release a trade for it because it was a pretty good seller.
Yeah.
I hope so.
But I do have 1, 2, and 3 in my store, so if you want to check it out, please come in and check it out. It's got some really interesting theming going on for sure.
I highly recommend this.
Yeah, we all do. I think we can all agree it's worth your time.
So good.
Yeah.
From now on, I'm going to refer to this story as Fievel Goes Ham. That's what I'm referring to this as.
Very nice.
From now
Very
on.
nice.
East of West, issue 5. And this is a comic, if you guys aren't reading, you really should. It combines, I don't really give plots away,
Right.
but it combines Western feel, Eastern mythology, and end of the world prophecies. And Death is your hero. But it's not. No, it's true. Death is your hero.
That is something that is worth saying. Death is the protagonist of the story. He's a cowboy.
He's a cowboy, and he's not out just killing people to be killing people. He's doing everything on a mission. He's in love.
Sure.
Death is in love. I mean, how can you not like that concept?
Within the confines of this
Of this story.
the way they are portraying Death,
I mean,
Death can be in love.
yes.
Yeah, but Death is portrayed in other stories. He
No.
couldn't be a guy who's in love with somebody.
No.
Because if he touched them, they'd be dead.
It does take place in the future, but it's got that old-timey feel. You see Death speaking in that country speak. You can read him with John Wayne's voice. Basically, Death is broken apart from the Four Horsemen. He's trying to stop them.
Yes.
And let everything else just be a hodgepodge of a really good story, really good art. Every issue has left you wanting more.
This has been a book that I've picked up, and it's fallen on the back burner for me. And this is the first issue I've read, and I'm sad to say that because it's fantastic.
I don't know what it is, but Image is just amazing right now.
It's the big 3 now, as far as I'm concerned.
That's something that it is worth saying. Like,
Yeah.
It's not just about Marvel and DC anymore. Image has put themselves in a position where they are a power player in this industry.
And it's not just like sales percentage, which they have. They are constantly putting out new,
Quality.
fresh, creative, and most importantly, good.
And to me, like you said, East of West was the reason I started reading comics.
Yep.
You can't just nail it down to one genre.
We compared it with Firefly mixed with a kung fu movie that you've seen.
But you got to throw in the end of the world.
Yeah.
Right.
It's apocalyptic. It's just amazing.
It's Firefly mixed with
and
Revelation.
this issue in
mixed
particular,
Ghostbusters.
and Dynasty Warriors.
Right.
Like,
Dynasty Warriors. You
Warriors.
could throw Dynasty Warriors in there.
It's a good jumping on point. It's a good book to throw. It was the only book in my pulling hold for like 2 months. That's how good it was.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, your pulling hole's gotten bigger.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw
That'll
that today.
happen. That'll happen.
It happens to all of us. Damn it.
And then you'll have a panic attack when you look at it one day, and then you'll be like, I gotta take these off. But that same day you'll add 5 new titles when you took 4 off.
All my titles are good. I'm happy. Though I do need to add one more.
Be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful.
But what they've presented with East of West is a mixing of
Everything.
5 genres of storytelling into one.
It flows.
It does. It
and
really
it's
works.
smooth. It's great.
What did you just notice?
I just noticed that it's a Hickman story.
Of course. And that's again one thing we were just talking about with Infinity is Hickman just does really good stuff.
Yep.
East of West number 5, 1 through 4, while not as easy to track down, can be tracked down in second printing form.
And
but
very
yeah,
soon there will be a trade.
There will.
The next couple months there will be a trade.
I guarantee you probably 6 is where they'll cut that first arc and move on. So then they'll have that 1 through 6 trade, and it's an Image trade. So I guarantee it'll probably be a $10 one.
Most likely.
Which they
most
do.
likely.
Usually trade ones of Image are $10 trades. I'm glad you picked it because we have not reviewed an issue of East of West yet, and I think that's travesty.
And that
is
shows
travesty.
why you guys are all wrong.
All right. Well,
It's-
it's
Sorry.
honestly just
thanks for coming on our show.
Yeah.
It's been
and
good
telling
having
us
you here.
how horrible we are
Look.
at running our show. Thank
Okay,
you.
to be honest, this was good. This was okay, but you haven't reviewed East of West.
But that will bring us to the end of the show for this week. I'd like to thank Rogerwayne
Thank
for
you for
sitting
having
in
me.
and joining us. Yeah, it was excellent. And your
pleasure
beard,
as always.
your beard,
Always.
fitting the motif. That's
like it,
that's
too.
important. Thanks for sitting in with us. Thanks for sitting in with us and listening to us rant about nerdy comics. As always, we will see you next week.
And cut.
It still makes me laugh every time.
Every time.